wait for that to stop shaking for a second. All right, what's going on, guys? So I wanted to come on and do a collective reading today, a little bit different style than what I normally do. It's going to be a Zodiac reading. So we do have a new moon in Cancer tomorrow. Cancer is very fluid, watery, emotional, very in touch with emotions, Cancer. So if you're feeling yourself a little sensitive, a little more on the sensitive side, that is totally normal, because new moon, full moon energy can tend to push us over the limit already. And being in the sign of Cancer, it's going to be a watery one. So you're not alone if you're feeling like that. That new moon is tomorrow. New moon energy is also about bringing in manifestations, as always with every new and full moon. So tossing out the stuff that we want to be done with, the things that aren't serving us anymore, and inviting in the things that we are, the things that are aligned with our highest good, making space for new intentions, new manifestations, stuff like that. So anyway, I'm going to get started. I have a bunch of tarot and oracle cards today. I have some different decks than I normally do because I've gotten a few new ones, and I also wanted to challenge myself a little because I have this deck here. This is the Zombie Tarot, which I don't always want to work with, and I felt called to work with it today because it's a little bit challenging, but it felt like it was going to come through with some really good messages for today. So your reading today will be focused on your astrological sun sign. You have different pieces of your chart, obviously, your astrological chart. Most people know their sun sign. Some people know their sun, moon, and rising sign, but today we're going to focus on your sun sign. So I'm going to go through the list, and I'm going to try to timestamp these so you don't have to sit through the entire reading and wait for your sun sign. If you want to stick around, though, there might be some messages in there for you. That's kind of how collective readings work. And we all have, many different placements in our chart, not just our sun sign. So there might be something else in another reading for you within the big reading, if that makes sense. So I'm going to start at the beginning. Whew, heavy already, because that's how collective readings go. Anything that doesn't resonate, just toss it out. We're going to start at the top of the list here, and the focus I want to be is, what are the challenges at this time for your particular sun sign? What are we looking to get rid of? What are we bringing in? What are we facing in particular from sign to sign here? So the first one I'm going to start at is going to be Taurus at the top of the list. So let's see, that is 245 Taurus. So let's get started. I'm going to start with the Zombie Tarot and see what's going on for Taurus. What are the collective themes? What are the challenges at hand? Strengths, weaknesses, things of that nature. Taurus. I'll take that one. That feels like too many cards, so let's try that again. Taurus. Okay, so 10 of Wands. If you can kind of see this card here, he looks a little frazzled in this picture. He looks like his head is spinning. That's literally what I'm seeing. This is obviously the Zombie Tarot, so that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to use this deck. It's really cool. But the 10 of Wands, in traditional tarot, this is about burdens. So Taurus, the burdens that you might be facing right now are those within yourself. So maybe your own demons coming up from healing, kind of coming to the realization actually as well that you actually really are your own worst enemy in some aspects, and that your only limitation is truly you, and you've been sort of maybe blaming that on other people. You have the 5 of Cups here, so that's kind of like cut your losses. You can see she's in a graveyard. She's sort of grieving a little bit. So the energy that I'm getting with this card and the message that's coming in here for Taurus at this time is sort of like, yeah, okay, you're having your little moment, your sadness, you're feeling sorry for yourself for the last time, it feels like, because we've done a lot of growth and had a lot of progress on the soul's journey for Taurus at this time. So you're realizing that there are some things that didn't work out, some things that didn't go your way, but Spirit is sort of coming in and asking you here to, that sounds brutal, but I just say what comes in sometimes. So sort of just asking you to get over it, because you have so many other things in front of you to focus on. So the stuff that didn't work out, or the things that aren't aligned, or the things that maybe you from your perception, the things that maybe you did wrong or the mistakes that you feel like you made. It's just time to let go of that, because it does become a little self-indulgent after a while, and it really doesn't serve, because spirit in the universe, whatever you want to call it, source energy, is trying to come in and gift you. It's trying to come in and gift you here. And what I'm getting with this card too, the Three of Swords, traditionally about heartache, but with that heart and like the spear that's going into it, it's like, obviously, you know, what, a zombie trying to eat a heart or something? I guess that's the interpretation of the card. But what I'm getting from this is that Taurus, you're right now never really satisfied. That's because there's something deeper going on an inner level spiritually. You're realizing there's some blocks, maybe there's some holes you weren't looking at there, some unhealed stuff that we haven't been focusing on, and that is causing you to have a little bit of self-pity, I guess. But this is what Spirit is trying to say with this card here. It's like you get and you get and you get, and there's so many options available to you and so many good things in your life, but you're not satisfied unless you get the one thing sometimes that you can't have. And that can be the toxic trait with Taurus. But what are we, you know, as I'm a Taurus as well, so that's why I'm going to refer to it that way. But the other thing I'm getting for Taurus with this card here, which is the Queen of Hazards, which I believe in this deck is the Queen of Wands, is sort of, okay, moving on. So Queen energy is like, we realize that we're in our own way at this point. We realize we don't want anything to stop us. We're going to cut our losses. We're going to keep moving. We're going to let the universe surprise us instead of trying to be so rigid. I think that's going to be a message for every sign here. Stop being so rigid. Because this card, it's sort of like, yeah. And with her arms kind of cut off here, this zombie here, and she's kind of chained to that chair. So us feeling restrained, that's sort of an illusion. But yes, this is a period of waiting and seeing. So this is not it is the time to get focused with your intentions. But when you are spinning your wheels, running in circles, trying to get somewhere and getting nowhere because the universe is repeatedly sending you the message that you need to wait, as she's kind of like cuffed to that chair, like you need to just wait because there are things outside of your control. There are things that are being rearranged that you can't see at this period of time. When you get that message and you ignore it, the only thing you're going to do is exhaust yourself, which really isn't advisable, I guess, because it's just draining. So I would say Taurus, it seems like what we're doing, Taurus, what we are releasing at this time during this new moon tomorrow is our own demons, our own issues, our own self-blame, self-judgment. We're just kind of getting out of our own way. And what we're bringing in is a new perspective and the understanding that some things do require patience, unfortunately. Taurus is usually pretty good with that. It's an earth sign, stubborn, steadfast, you know, can be toxic in some ways, as every sign in the zodiac can. But just lean into that grounded, earthy energy a little bit more, Taurus, at this time, because the manifestations of blessings are coming a lot faster than you think they are. But when you try to meddle with, you know, spirit, universe, when you try to meddle with divine timing, that's when we get into some real trouble. So just kind of relax while things redirect and shift for you at this point of time. And I will also actually do a manifestation card here. This is the Super Attractor Oracle deck by Gabrielle Bernstein. I just got this deck a couple weeks ago. And I really, really like it a lot. It's just like positive affirmations like that. So let's do an affirmation for Taurus. That was quick. Okay. True manifesting is about receiving what is of the highest good for all. Right. And that's pretty much in line with what we were just seeing a minute ago. So it's not always about what you want, Taurus. And Taurus is that type of sign that really does focus on what I want. It's what you need. And that is sometimes more important for everyone involved than what you want. Because even if you do get what you want sometimes, you know, we find out later once we've gotten something that we thought we wanted that we didn't want it. So who knows better than us when it comes to stuff like that? The divine does. So let the divine shift things around for you. If something is taken away from you that you wanted, or you're not getting something you wanted, just believe that something else much better is going to take its place. And we can't always see how or why or for what particular reason something isn't good for us. So just trust into that knowing. Spirit always has your back. Spirit's always going to provide for you. Spirit's always going to give you present to you the timeline available for your highest good, and it's up to you to choose whether or not you trust that and you lean into that. So okay, so it's 10 minutes. Okay. So we're right at the 10-minute mark. And now we're going to start Gemini. Okay, so Gemini. What are the strengths and weaknesses at this time? What are we releasing with this new moon tomorrow? What are we calling in? Current themes, Gemini. Let's see. Okay. Okay. A lot of cards here too, but we'll work with this. So what are we releasing and bringing in at this time? So Gemini got the Fool card. So the Fool in traditional tarot is usually about a new perspective, new energy, that moment that comes after a big release of some sort, that carefree, suddenly I feel lighter, you know, whatever it is. And you can kind of see he's walking through a cemetery, it looks like, with a wreath and some things to put on a grave maybe. So Gemini, what are we releasing here? This is going to sound kind of not negative necessarily, but Gemini, we're kind of releasing a sort of smug energy at this time, I feel like, of I know best mentality. So maybe there's been some humbling going on. You've been beating yourself up maybe for thinking you were on the right path with something, and then suddenly something came in and was like, oh, I guess I'm overdoing it. I don't know as much as I thought I know. Or maybe so we're releasing an unwillingness as well, Gemini, to take advice from other people, or to bend a little bit more flexibility. And I feel like also with this card, it's like he's sort of making peace with his past as well. So kind of a similar energy here to what's happening with Taurus, is giving up the control. Giving up the control a little bit, realizing that we don't always know best. We're just human. Yes, we're divine too, but there are bigger things at play than us cosmically. And when we try to just spin our wheels constantly, all we do is burn out sometimes. The Devil here, so this is what we're also releasing. This is in relation to addictions. This is material items sometimes. Maybe Gemini, we were leaning into the ego a little bit, which we all do that at times. So whether it's within your relationships, whatever the case may be, maybe your ego was really screaming out for a bit, and that was causing you to sort of lean into a version of yourself that you didn't like so much. So we're releasing that at this time too. And it says right here on the jukebox, it says vices. So there's always going to be temptations around things to lean on as coping mechanisms. So you may be releasing some coping mechanisms as well, Gemini. The Knight of Swords here, this is typically about something coming in, but I feel like it's more like an after battle thing here. Like that's what we're bringing in here. We're bringing in some more confidence and conviction with things, because some of this energy, Gemini, this devil energy that was here was only here to protect you. When the ego acts up, it acts up because it's protecting you. When you you begin to play a role of someone you're not and wear a false mask, that happens when your ego is like, it tells you we're not safe in this situation. We're not safe to be vulnerable. We're not safe for whatever reason. So we have to become a different version of ourselves. So what I see with this here is we're kind of getting rid of some of that devil energy there. We're releasing the control, similar to Taurus, releasing some of that need to be right all the time, I guess, and just going with the flow. And whatever situation it is that triggered your ego, we're just pulling ourselves back from that, because it doesn't matter what's right, what's wrong. We just know that when we're in a situation where our ego is triggered, it's trying to teach us something. And it's okay to walk away from some situations as well if they're triggering, a negative response from you. Certainly, every trigger is for the purpose of healing, but that doesn't mean you need to continue to expose yourself to situations, people, whatever the case may be, Gemini, that are triggering you and causing you to feel in negative ways constantly. You're allowed to step away from those situations at any time. Ace of Swords, yeah. So what I'm getting here too, Ace of Swords is the clarity. Coming in with the clarity, the conviction, the confidence, rising stronger here. If you can see, there's a zombie hand trying to grab this sword too, as well as like the person fighting it. So again, it's more of that inner demon stuff. Same with Taurus here. But it's releasing the control and taking... It's interesting because that's sort of contradictory, but releasing the control while gaining it as well. Because you're in control when you're not in control. Does that make sense? second you surrender the tight grip on control is when you are actually in control of yourself, your feelings, your emotions, and your environment, because you're just drifting, like being taken by the tides versus trying to swim against the tides, if that makes sense. So Gemini, you're kind of stepping into flow a little bit. You're like, whatever is going to come is going to come. Whatever is going to stay is going to stay. What's going to go is going to go. I don't need to get super triggered, angry, or irritable about that, because I realize I'm sort of powerless, and that actually gives me some power, if that makes sense. Page of Hazards here. So there's like this little zombie kid here. It looks like maybe it's his first day of school. He's a little battered. So yeah, that's the kind of energy we might be in, Gemini. We're like, ugh, I put all this energy into all these other avenues that maybe didn't work out so well, or you've just put yourself through the ringer, maybe like put yourself through an internal battle lately because you beat yourself up for the ways that you've been, or the ways you've been thinking, or whatever the case may be. Gemini is a sign that is super focused on logic because it's such high intelligence. So it's like that mental energy is moving like a million miles a minute at all times. So don't beat yourself up, Gemini, because you are arguably the most intelligent sign of the zodiac. So you are receiving constant information intuitively and mentally at all times from every aspect. And the collective energy is a lot right now. So that's what I'm getting from this card. This kid is kind of like, he's like, well, I've been through the ringer, but I'm back at it again. So Gemini, you're stepping into a more humble space. You're becoming that student of the universe again. Maybe you're leaning towards some more passions, creative arts again, things that make your soul feel good. But just, I feel a really positive shift for Gemini is what I'm getting, into more relaxation, receivership, not fighting to control the tides so much, healing of the ego, and maybe some inner child healing as well, because that's, you know, that's kind of standard across the board for everybody. All right, let's do an affirmation card for Gemini. All right. Ooh, that was a quick one. All right. I heal the habit of fear and I embrace the habit of love. Yes, this is a really beautiful card too. You can see there's the twins here. Gemini zodiac literally is the embodiment of the twins, so that makes perfect sense. And I have a Gemini placement as well. Gemini is like, people always call Gemini in a negative sense two-faced sometimes, which isn't necessarily true. It's just like Gemini is like the epitome of that angel devil on your shoulder, because it's the zodiac of the twins. It's the two signs. It's the constant back and forth. Gemini is air. It's mutable. It has that ability to sort of flip constantly and change in a chameleon-like energy. So this being about, releasing fear and leaning more into love, it's like the more we drop weight from that ego and the more we drop judgment from self every time we do become triggered or whatever out of fear, the more forgiveness can come in for self, and the more we can sort of peel back. Whew, sorry, this one is coming in fast. If you can see, there's the two here, they're facing each other, but it's almost like Russian dolls. There are smaller versions of them inside. So that to me speaks about peeling back the layers that are built of fear, the layers that are built from the wounded inner child. Every time we forgive ourselves a little more for, you know, reacting in a way that was not as aligned as it could be, we kind of break the shell a little bit more and peel back those layers to awakening and forgiveness and joy and all that good stuff. Okay, so let's see. 19. Okay, so Cancer is the next one here. Cancer. What are the collective themes here? Strengths, weaknesses, what are we facing at this time? What are we releasing with this new moon in Cancer tomorrow? That's right, so it's a new moon in your sign, Cancer. So when that's the case, we always expect it to be a little bit more intense. So you might be feeling extra watery and emotional today. And after this one, after Cancer, I'm gonna split it up so the videos aren't too long. So after this one, I'm probably just gonna stop and restart. So Cancer. Ooh. Cancer, what's going on? Cancer. All right. Okay, do a clarifier on that Six of Cups. Okay, Cancer. So the first thing we got here is the Temperance card. When we see Temperance, that's always about healing. So definitely feeling the I don't want to say mushy, not mushy, emotional, like soft vibes with Cancer almost. It's almost like a dream-like sort of nostalgic energy that I'm feeling Cancer in at this time. We also got the Six of Cups here, which is about childhood healing. Forgiveness of the self as well. That seems like a common theme for every one of the signs today. And the Ace of Swords too, as well. Gemini had this too. But the difference I'm feeling with this Ace of Swords in the spread for Cancer is that this is more like learning receivership, Cancer. So instead of trying to push forward all the time and be hyper independent and do everything yourself, you're sort of learning that you get a little bit further when you do open your heart to receivership. The other thing I'm getting with that, that's coming in pretty strongly, is when people give to you, Cancer, they don't give to you out of pity. They don't give to you because it just makes their ego feel good or whatever. People give to you because you're a good person, because you're a kind person, because you're giving, because you deserve it. And lots of times when you receive gifts or help or however that abundance comes in from others, that is spirit directly reaching out to you to give back to you for everything that you give to the world. And so with that Six of Cups here and the Temperance card about the healing, you're sort of in this healing space where you're doing, yet again, some more inner child healing. And that's allowing you to open that heart chakra up a little bit more to receive and to step more into that receivership and realize that you don't have to go it alone. You don't have to do everything completely by yourself without help. That is trauma response that most of us have a little element of, at least. And the other thing I'm getting from this Temperance card is I know it's a zombie and a guy that's not a zombie, but to me it looks like the traditional archetype of like parents from a 1950s home, 40s, 50s home. So what that's speaking to me about with this childhood healing is that some of that response you have about needing to do everything on your own is a lot of damage from childhood. So watching parents that maybe taught you that weakness wasn't good and it wasn't good to show vulnerability, and that you just have to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just take whatever comes to you in this life and not ask for help. That's what I'm feeling, not asking for help. So what you're doing is sort of clearing some of that template to realize that you can ask for help. And when you do ask for help, the universe provides. So be open to receiving regardless of how that comes in. Okay, and we also got the Two of Cups here, which is about spiritual union typically in tarot. And see how there's like this ragged, he's eating a brain, it's like a zombie situation here, and then above it's like, again, that typical 40s, 50s dinner table type vibe. So that's what I'm getting from that, is like, you know that this perfect, everything has to be perfect, we don't show our weaknesses type of energy. Maybe you grew up around that. You know that was all, a lot of it in your childhood maybe was false. And a lot of the adults were suffering from this type of energy. Maybe some mental anguish, maybe some wounding they didn't discuss, but we presented an image that was not aligned with what was really going on. And that created some mixed up energy for you that you took on. And that created some narratives for your life maybe. So we're kind of healing that. We're healing that with the Strength card here. And again, the Queen of Hazards as well, about moving on and stepping into power and understanding that we need to be patient with ourselves during the process of healing, because it is a very long journey. And the 10 of Hazards here, another living room situation here. So yeah, this is talking a lot about childhood, family dynamics, specifically parents, and the toxic energy they presented and created during childhood. So far, everything that I'm getting for all the signs that we've done is a deeply like self-reflective piece of a little bit of sadness, but a little bit of surrender as well, of just realizing that healing is a process, it's a journey, it takes time. Every time you think you've mastered something, you can get knocked down again. But we're just, it takes a long time. There's a lot of layers, there's a lot of triggers. We're all human, even though we're divine as well. So when in doubt, lean into that divine side of yourself. And that's what drives me nuts sometimes in the spiritual community, when we do not acknowledge duality. And I know some people discuss non-duality. That doesn't necessarily resonate for me. We live here on the 3D world as much as we exist spiritually. So when you're feeling kind of run down by your traumas, or your physical circumstances, or the reality that's in front of you physically, that's when you can lean more into your divinity and take the sacred space and the quiet space. Try to connect to your ancestors more, meditate a little, get outside, your angels, whatever. Okay, and we'll do an affirmation card for Cancer also here. Cancer. Okay. My true safety lies in my capacity to align with the love of the universe. Yes. And Cancer, I don't know if you're feeling a little out of place, like not able to find your place in the world right now. Because what I'm getting from this sort of ink blot in the background here is sort of like feeling lost in space, kind of in the cosmic energy. So you could be being influenced by the new moon tomorrow right now. Just know that you're going to be lifted and pulled in place to wherever it is that you're meant to be. And home is not necessarily a fixed concept. It is, you know, wherever you feel joyous and free and safe and comfortable. So home doesn't have to be, you know, exactly where you came from, or the house you grew up in, or maybe situations you've grown out of that you're feeling homesick for. Home can be recreated in so many different spaces as long as that space is aligned with you. So be open to possibility, and receiving comfort in any way that it presents itself to you without judgment, if that makes sense. All right, so we're at right about 28 minutes. So I'm going to stop right here, and then we're going to get started with the next zodiac sign, which is going to be Leo. All right.